So Michelle is a longtime friend, member, presenter at AEE. We'll actually see her quite a few times in workshops at our international conference this fall in Orlando in November. Hope to see some of you all there as well. And she'll probably be speaking and presenting at a dozen or more other international and local conferences as she does. She's a very sought after speaker, author, facilitator, great human being. And with Training Wheels, she really does an amazing job at creating resources and tools to help us do our jobs better. And that's really the spirit of this webinar today. We're offering it free to all of you. Quite an amazing turnout today, close to 200 folks coming on for this webinar. So we're really excited to help you all increase your bag of tricks, learn a few new variations of this classic tag game that we all know and love. So without further ado, I'll go ahead and pass it on over to you, Michelle. We'll get things rolling.
All right, thanks, Dan. I'm excited to be here today. And this particular workshop, when Dan and I were kind of brainstorming, what would be a great webinar that we could do to offer at no cost that would really benefit a really wide variety of people out there, we thought, you know what? Everybody needs a good energizer. Everybody could use some tag games. So I thought, oh, this is going to be a fun one. So I have 10 different tag games to share with you today, and we'll get through as many of those as possible in the hour that we're together. And the first 5 or so are just more kind of fall into that energizer when you really need a good energy boost in your group. Or just kind of try to kick off your program with something. And then the second 5 are going to be more tag games that teach. So those are going to be more games that it could be just a fun game. But if you wanted to debrief that game and actually take it a little bit deeper and a little bit further, there's actually some little hidden gems in there or teachable moments in some of those games. So that way you've got an energizer as well as something that you could sequence into your program to really surface a behavior that maybe you'd like to tackle with your group as well. So I'm excited to get started, and we're just going to dive in. Now, I do have some of the games I have video of, but because we're streaming live with this webinar, it might seem a little bit choppy to you. So they're not very long in length. Most of them are about 30 seconds to a minute in length, the videos anyway, but it'll give you kind of a good sense of what it looks like when your group will be doing this game as well. So to get started, I'm gonna try to advance my slides here. Let's see here. Here we go. All right, so the first 5 that we're gonna do, the first one is one of the probably first tag game that I learned was called pair tag. And so we'll walk through these 5 to begin, and then, like I said, we'll get into that second group right after we get through these first 5. So, all right, the first game is called pair tag. Now, pair tag, I love this game for a lot of reasons, but one of them is that you can use it with a really small group, or you can use it with a really large group. I think the largest group that I have done this activity with is about 1,000 people at one time. And it was a big room and with a lot of people. So first thing you need to do is have everyone find a partner. And then between their partner and themselves, they need to decide who's going to be it first and who's going to be quote unquote chased first. Now I use that word chased a little loosely because we really don't want people to run in this particular game because it's a greater risk of injury if people are running. So I always tell people this is a fast walking game, and sometimes I'll even have them, hey, repeat that back to me. This is a fast walking game, just so that everyone really understands, and say to keep everyone safe, we really do need to control the pace of this game. And so in a minute, I'm going to say go. And when I say go, the person who's it first has to do a full 360 turnaround before they can start walking after the person that they are chasing. Now, when I say go, the person who is being chased first needs to quickly walk away from the person who's it. And just in that, literally enough time that it takes to get that person who's it to turn a 360 and then start walking towards them is enough time to get far enough away. You're at least greater than an arm's length away from that person by that time. So, and as in a normal tag game, the person who is being chased is trying to avoid being tagged by the person who is it. But you're just playing tag with one other person. And it's crazy to see how it all happens when you're trying to avoid being tagged by this one person, but everybody else is mingling and running around in this exact same space. So then what happens is that if the person who's it actually tags the person who they were being chased, what happens then is the person who was being chased now becomes it. The roles reversed. And so this person then has to do a 360, while the person was it, who is now being chased, has just enough time to move away from the person who is now being it. And you just play for 2 or 3 minutes. It's amazing how just walking around kind of quickly at a quick space will wear your participants out. It's pretty funny actually to see how much people are really heavily breathing after just walking and trying to get away from their partner in just a 2-3 minute time period. Another thing, this is the giggliest game. Like, I don't know what it is about this game, but everyone giggles and laughs through the entire game. So it's very, it's a good endorphin raiser for sure, because everyone is just laughing and having a good time while being either chased or trying to chase someone for that shorter period of time. So here's a video of a kids group doing this game, and you'll be able to see kind of the chaotic movement of it. And again, it might be a little bit choppy for you, but it's not very long in length. You can see how easy it would be to lose your partner in that big chaotic mess of that sea of people. And so it's actually kind of interesting to watch some strategies start to emerge. Some people, you're actually able to quote unquote hide a little bit while you're trying, especially like this group, they're all in the same colored shirts for the most part. And so if you're looking for someone that, and everyone has the same color shirt on, it's a lot harder to find them. Now, you could probably see in this video how this one, they were kind of fast walking, but as in any tag game, people are going to quicken their pace to avoid getting tagged. So there are times when you may want to control the movement or control the pace at which people are moving. So I've created a couple ways to control the way people move in order to slow it down quite a bit. Now, this particular group that we're about to watch a video on is more of an adult group, and they also have the, so I wanted to control the space, or the speed, as well as the how quickly the game was played. So I incorporated 2 things. One, to control the speed, then I had them do the way that they could move. They had to do heel-toe walking the entire time. And that will slow down your speed greatly. So that's usually what I do. Sometimes I'll start out phase 1 of pair tag. I'll just let them, play at the fast-paced walking. Then if they're walking faster than I'd like, I say, okay, great guys, we're gonna play this game again. And this time what we're gonna do is we're gonna control how quickly, or the pace in which people can move. So this time, the only way people can move is by heel-toe walking. Now, this particular group, I actually wanted to slow down so I could play the game a little bit longer. And so then every time somebody was tagged, they had to play rock, paper, scissors. And then whoever won the game was the one who became it. And then they had to do a 360 before they could chase after their partner. So watch how this one plays out. It definitely is a controlled speed and definitely the pace as well. Here we go. So you can definitely tell that the pace is much slower. And this because I had a small space and I needed to control that speed so that people didn't get hurt. So it was just a great variation to make that happen. All right, so another way that you could, so here's a couple of variations on pair tag. Another way, so in the last 2 ways that you just saw, that people were touching and tagging by touch, right? So there was one group that I was working with that they wanted to really work on trust and integrity. as a couple of the buzzwords of things they wanted to work on in their group. So I thought, well, how can I change a tag game to where really it's about people being honest about whether or not they were tagged or not. So I thought, let's give this a try. So I actually took the game of pair tag, and instead of physical touch, is if when you are mingling around, if you turn and look and you make eye contact with the person who's it, then all of a sudden, then the roles reverse. And it became one of those, like, I mean, you kind of know when you make eye contact with someone, right? And so it's one of those where literally you kind of, and you, of course, I always tell people that you can't just close your eyes, right? Because that kind of defeats the purpose of the game. And so anyway, so as they're mingling around, if they happen to turn and look, oh, there's their partner, then all of a sudden, then they know, you know, that you have them raise their hand, like, yep, I'm it now, and then have them do their 360-degree circle, and then they start wandering off after and really looking. It's funny to watch them, how they really go into seek and destroy mode, if you will, by trying to really look right into the eyes of their partner. It's very funny. So eye contact tag is another variation. Another great variation of this is Cyclops tag. Now, Cyclops tag, now if you think about a Cyclops, it's, you know, a mystical creature that has one eye. So pair tag do the exact same game, however, limit their sight. So I'm gonna take my glasses off for a moment. So one thing that I do with Cyclops tag is, one, you could just have them cover one eye, and it greatly restricts your vision, which is down to one eye. So that's one way you could do it. However, if you want to restrict it even more, have them cover one eye, but then also make a circle like this to, so now it also restricts your peripheral vision as well as everything else. So it's as well as just down to one eye. It is a lot harder, and the only way you should play Cyclops tag is if you do heel-toe walking at the same time, because once you restrict your vision, you do not want people walking fast, because you literally cannot see the people that are even immediately right here to your right. And so you don't want people fast walking. You need them to heel-toe walk, so that way they don't, you know, have any collisions and things like that. What I love about it is that sometimes the person that you're looking for is literally standing right beside you, but you can't see them because you've restricted your vision. So, anyway, so Cyclops tag here kind of looks a little bit like this. So you can even have them cover their eyes, or just have them close that other eye. It's just depending on the age of your participants and whatnot. But again, it's a giggly game, and it definitely changes the game a little bit once you restrict their vision as well. So that's pair tag. Another great thing about most all the games I'm going to present today, they're all non-prop for the most part. So they're literally just great games that you can put into your back pocket and have to use anywhere. So this one here, you could use it as a small group of 6 or 8. And then again, I've led it with a really large group. And you can get completely lost in the sea of people with pair tag with a group that large, but it still can be done. So. All right, let's move on to our second game. Our second game is Evolution. Now, this game here is an oldie but a goodie. It's one that I still use. It was probably one of the first games that I even learned 25 years ago when I first started facilitating, and it's still one that I play to this day. And there's been lots of variations done on this game, but the prior knowledge of rock, paper, scissors is a necessity for this game. And so whenever I am facilitating a group, I'll sometimes ask, does everyone know how to play rock, paper, scissors? Is there anyone that does not know? And usually nobody will raise their hand. Even if they don't know how to play, they don't want to be that person that raises their hand and go, I don't know how to play the game everyone else does, right? So I always go ahead and I describe the game anyway, even though I've just asked the question. So the rock, paper, scissors is a game to where you have a choice to throw 3 different symbols, either rock, which is usually done by a closed fist, paper, which is a flat hand, and then scissors with your 2 little index fingers out like that. And then I always tell them when to throw the sign, because some people throw on 3, some people throw on 4. So I always tell them, for this game, we're all going to throw on 4. So it's going to be rock, paper, scissors, throw. And then you would choose to throw whichever one of those 3 signs on the 4th, on the word throw or show. I don't use the word shoot anymore because we're supposed to use nonviolent language with groups that we work with. So I always do rock, paper, scissors, show, or rock, paper, scissors, throw. And then whoever wins that round, of course. And then I always tell them what beats rock, paper, what beats paper, scissor, and what beats scissor, rock. So just to make sure that everybody knows the rules to the game. So in evolution, everybody starts out as an egg in a very egg-like position. And so, let's see, my slides aren't advancing. There we go. So, so everyone starts out kind of in a squatted, waddled position, and they waddle over to another person that's in the same, on the same level that they're on. And so, and then they play one round of rock, paper, scissors. Whoever wins that round advances up to a chicken, and then whoever loses that round remains an egg. And so, and then move on. And then, so once you're a chicken, then everyone makes a very chicken-like noise, and they must squawk and walk very chicken-like over to another chicken. And then they play one round of rock, paper, scissors. And then whoever wins advances to a velociraptor, and then whoever loses, you can do this two ways. Either they remain a chicken, or if you want, you could have them devolve one level back down. And then you always have different people playing at all the levels. And then velociraptor would be the next evolution of the egg to the chicken to the velociraptor. And so the velociraptor lets out a very velociraptor type of yell, and I usually have them put their hands up in the air, rah, and make a rawr noise, and they go over to another velociraptor and they play rock, paper, scissors with them. Whoever wins advances to the immortal group, and then whoever loses either remains a velociraptor, or you can have them devolve one level back down to chicken. And then this continues until you have many immortals. You could have the remaining eggs, chicken, and velociraptors jokingly bow down to the immortals and say, "We're not worthy, we're not worthy," or something like that. So, so this one also could be done with a small group of 6 to 10 kids or people, and then it could also be done with a large group as well. So here's a quick video of evolution. There's nothing more fun than watching people play, right? Like, I just love it. I love it so much. All right, so our next game is a great game that I call Viper Tag. Now, Viper Tag is another game that you, usually you need boundaries for this one, so you don't have long distance Viper Tag. That's not a fun game. So in this game, everyone starts out with 2 Vipers. Now, Vipers are your hands with your first 2 fingers on each hand up and ready for striking. So it looks kind of like a 2 peace signs. However, then you bend your fingers over like this. So you've got 2 Vipers like this, ready for striking. And so then once everyone has established their Vipers, and I usually tell everyone, to make a really cool Viper noise as well. So I have them make a Viper hiss noise, like or something like that. And so, so then I have everyone, as I'm giving the directions, I have everybody then like do that as well. Now for this game, how I usually started out with the group is I say, okay, everybody, we're going to play a great game called Viper Tag. I need everyone to get out your Vipers, and Vipers look like this, and tell them that, and then make the Viper sounds. Everyone does it together. And so then usually how I describe the game is, okay, so if you ever get bit by a mosquito or a bug or something like that, what's the first thing you usually do? You're like, ow, right? So same thing in Viper Tag, that if in a minute, everybody's going to be it, and everybody will be playing the game at the exact same time. If you get stung by someone's Viper, ow, you've got to now cover wherever the wound is where you were just hit, okay? Or let's say someone hit you on the shoulder. So then you've got to basically hold wherever it is that you get tagged, you've got to hold on to wherever it is. Well, that takes me down to 1 Viper, right? So, but I'm still in the game because I still have a Viper. So I'm running around trying to avoid getting tagged. Let's say someone tags me on the leg or something like that. So now I'm holding onto my leg and my arm. I'm not out of the game just yet. It's not until I get tagged the 3rd time. And once I get tagged the third time, that's when I have enough venom inside of me where now I need to create the biggest death and dying scene that the group has ever seen. And so if you look here to the picture on the right, all those people that are laying down are already people that have already been bitten 3 times. And look, this one here, the one in the front corner there, she's definitely, I love to watch the death and dying scenes. It's hysterical to watch people literally lay there and shake and tremble after and make their, you know, horrible death and dying sounds and whatnot. And then I have some sort of prize. I always tell them to that the group can then vote on the best death and dying scene that someone gives after the game. And I have usually some sort of like silly prize, a piece of candy, or, you know, something, you know, fun that would to give to whoever the group votes on has the best death and dying scene. So anyway, and then you can play a couple rounds of this one. So it's a pretty quick game. I would say it only takes maybe 3 minutes or so, depending on the size of your group. And again, this is one you can play with a lot of people, or up to, you know, 6 to 10 people at one time as well. So here's a quick video of Viper Tag.
Quick game of Viper Tag.
All right. So, so Viper Tag, it's a great big field run around. You can do it indoors, outdoors, no matter where. I usually try to establish boundaries of some sort with this game, just so that way it doesn't become long distance Viper Tag. This video here doesn't look like we had boundaries, and it really spread out, which makes for sometimes a lot longer game if the more spread out that they get. So if by chance you have questions about any of these games as I'm presenting them, feel free to put them in the chat box, because I'll be glancing over at that during the webinar as well. So feel free, if you have any questions as I'm describing the games, then feel free to pipe up and ask your questions as well. All right, so next game that we're going to talk about is Wagon Wheel Tag. Now, I love this game. This one can be done with small groups or large groups as well. It can be played indoors, outdoors. All you need are lines on the ground of some sort. So if you are outside, you could use you could use lines, you could use rope or webbing or something like that that lays flat on the ground as your wagon wheel. This is my favorite game to play in the snow outside, because then you just stomp a big wagon wheel in the snow, and then you have your instant playing field, if you will. I've also, if you're indoors, I've used painter's tape or masking tape on the ground to create the lines on the floor. Or if you're at a school, you can use a gymnasium or something like that, then you can use the lines that are already pre-existing on the floor as well. So this one here, if you're creating your wheel, you need to make the wheel at least 30 feet in diameter for a group, up to 60 feet or more in diameter for really large groups. But the basic gist of this game is that the wheel itself becomes the lines in which people can move. And so, once you've got your playing field established, all the lines on the floor, ask everyone to come and stand on the line. And then you ask for one volunteer to start out as it, or if you have a really large group, then I have like maybe 4 or 5 people being it. And you need to somehow designate how these people how the other players know who's it at what time, because the it is going to transfer once people get tagged. So I usually use a rubber chicken or a Dr. Seuss hat or something that's very visual, so that way people can see who is it at what time. So once you have designated your people who are it, then you tell them, it's like, so whoever's it's going to start out in the center of the wheel, and it's a basic tag game. So they're going to be traveling or traversing anywhere on the wheel, and same for the other participants. You can only maneuver on the lines. And so the person who's it is going to be walking down any one of those channels, trying to walk towards someone to tag them. And of course, the people who are being chased want to avoid being tagged. So they are going to be moving away from the tagger. Now, one unique thing about Wagon Wheel Tag that I love that makes it a very strategic game is that you cannot pass anybody that is on a line. So if I am, Dan, can they see my cursor? If I move my cursor over the wheel, are they able to see my cursor?
Yes, they can.
Okay, great. So, so let's say if your tagger, if you start out in the center and the tagger starts going down one of the spokes of the wheel here, everybody else here is on the wheel and they're moving away. But if someone just chooses to stop in place, then everybody else has to stop behind them. So you can't pass anybody on any of the lines. So what makes that great and what makes it such a strategic game is that you could just stop at any point in time, and then whoever is coming up behind you, then they're like, wow, and then they get tagged. Then of course, before they can, just like in pair tag, before they can start chasing after someone else, they receive the rubber chicken, they now become it, and they turn around. They have to turn a 360 before they can start chasing after somebody else. So, and then of course, if you've got 4 or 5 people on this big wheel that are it, like everywhere you look, you have to really try to figure out where I should, which spoke I should go down and things like that. So it becomes very strategic, and it allows for some fantastic strategies for people to come up with of trying to either make somebody be it or trying to avoid being it and things like that. So it's a really fun one. So this is also one that, here's an example of where it was done in the snow, and then a math teacher actually took this and decided to use it in their school to start looking at fractions and using it from a math point of view. So I just thought that was totally ingenious, where they took the basic game of tag and then were able to create some great science lessons out of it as well. So I actually, one of my favorite times that I did this game was I was doing a corporate group up in Vail at one of the ski resorts, and it had just snowed the night before. So I had like a big parking lot, and it was like good 2.5, 3 foot drifts that had blanketed over the parking lot that evening. And so the next morning I woke up and I put on a pair of snowshoes and I trotted out a giant wagon wheel in the parking lot with multiple spokes. And what was great about it being 3 feet is that you could hide from the person who was it. In the snowdrifts, all you had to do was duck down below, and you couldn't see them because my wheel was big enough. So that was one of those unexpected, really super fun things that all of a sudden it became hide and seek as well as wagon wheel tag all at the same time. So so it was really, really fun. So that's wagon wheel tag. It's, again, one of my absolute favorites. I use this one quite often. And again, if you're in a gymnasium, you've got this pre-printed lines right on the floor. You can, some people probably call it line tag as well, but you can use any type of surface. One time I was in a hotel conference room, and it had really awful carpet, but it didn't have lines, so I just used painter's tape, and it was easy to pull up afterwards. So you can get creative with your lines and how you create your wagon wheel, and have fun with it. So,
Michelle, we have a question coming in from Nicole. I don't know if you saw it, about sort of when do you use these games? And I know that you're going to be talking about teaching specific games in the second half, but I didn't know if you wanted to touch on her question before.
Yeah, I will definitely, I'm going to tackle that a lot in the second half for sure. But, you know, probably the games that I've presented so far are more games like if I'm sequencing out my program, these are ones like after you've done your initial icebreaker and maybe your first name game or so with the group, then I would throw in the energizer games just to kind of lift your energy a little bit, get things kind of started on an energetic note. And it also, these types of games, in my opinion, are the best way to help people really leave whatever it is that they just came from, whether it be home or you know, if you're working with a corporate group, it really helps them disconnect from the outside world and invites them into the program. Because when you're at play, you are your natural true self. And I love these types of games because I can start to learn a lot about my participants just in my early energizers. And so as far as the reflection questions will be, sometimes when I debrief a tag game, I'll ask, who won that game? If there's not one like person standing at the end, a lot of times they'll look at you kind of funny, like, what do you mean, who won that game? And really the answer that I'm kind of looking for there is to get them thinking about, like, well, if everybody played by the rules and everyone played fairly, then we all, everyone wins, because it's a lot more fun. But if we have someone that's cheating or bending the rules, that starts to tell me more about those behaviors that they might pop up during the program. And also it helps me surface behaviors that I can now ask really good questions around. Like did anyone see, and actually I have a game later that I will absolutely address that with. So sometimes afterwards it'll just be like, hey, did you guys have fun with that game? And I don't really debrief it afterwards. Or sometimes I'll say, what do you think the purpose of that game was? Why do you think we just did this really energetic, up and active game? And just ask them, what do you think? Why do you think I just did that? And just hear the answers that they have. And so it could be just, yeah, I just wanted to raise the energy in the group, or we've been sitting for a long time, thought it'd be great to get everybody up and moving around a little bit, so we re-engage our brains, and that we're able to actually now focus and dive into more content or things like that. So, all right, but in the second half, I'll tackle that more. All right, so look up, look down, or look down, look up, I guess is what I have it there in the title line there. This is another great one that if you've been sitting for a while, you just need people to kind of release some endorphins. This is a super silly one. So do this one in groups of, if you have a large group, break them down into small groups of 5 to 10 people, and have everyone then look down at the imaginary spot in the center of the circle. And then instruct them that when you say look up, then everyone is to pick one person in their mind that they are going to look directly in the face of and try to make eye contact with that person. But you have to pick one person that you're going to look at. And if by chance that person chose you as well, and then all of a sudden you're making eye contact with that person, then you're to point and scream with conviction. So it just literally it's like, ah, right? Just like they point and they scream, and it's so silly. Everyone will just burst out laughing. So basically I say, all right, everyone look down, look up. And then if people are looking at each other, they'll point and scream. And then I'll say, look down, look up. And then they'll choose somebody different, or maybe they choose the same person or something like that. So it's, and I get a little theatrical sometimes when I'm giving the directions. And so I always tell them, I'm like, I want you to scream with conviction when you make eye contact. So I usually have them start out with that, do maybe 6 or 7 rounds this way. And then I change the rules and I add a couple things. So phase 2 then is after I've done 6 or 7 the first round, then I'll say, now, if you, when I say look down and then look up and you make eye contact with someone, I want you to point, scream, and then run to one of the other groups. And that adds a little bit more movement to it, and a lot more fun. So here's a quick video of this group that I did up in the mountains here in Colorado one time. So I'll show a couple. I played this game for a long time. The video is 2 minutes long, so I'm going to advance it at some point in time. And again, it might be a little bit choppy, but you'll get to see the general gist of the game.
This is look down, look up, or eye contact partner tag.
And did you see that? Every once in a while, you'll have it to where nobody actually picked the same person. There was no eye contact made. All right, so now I'm going to show you what it looks like when they point, scream, and run to another group. this group over here on the left-hand side, I think it's this next one, where almost the entire group leaves this one circle. Look at that, almost the entire circle. They like get reduced down to like 5. So you can keep playing that game until one circle is gone, you know, or just do, you know, 7 or 8 of it until it just feels like naturally it should come to an end. So, so yes, I see your question coming in, Mark. So people are picking one person in their minds ahead of time, and when they look up, that's absolutely right. So when they're looking down, that's when they need to choose like who it is that they're going to be, who they're going to look up at. And then when you say look up, they look straight at that person. And you don't change your mind once you look up. You pick that one person and you commit to that one. Because otherwise everybody would just be looking around until they made and then they would make eye contact. So it's literally you choose that one person in your mind when you're looking down, and then when you look up, you just look at that straight at that person. If they're not looking at you, then you don't do anything that round. And then you look back down, you pick even a different person if you want to, or you could pick the same person, look up, and then again you've chosen that one person, and that's who you stick with. So so this one is just another, not really a tag game, but it's more one of those energizer games that it's kind of eye contact tag, if you will, but at the same time it's just it's a very fun game that, like, I don't know if it really has much purpose other than to get some endorphins and get people laughing and giggling and a little bit of a time filler. So, all right. So the next game, the next 5 games we're going to move into are tag games that teach. So these games are going to be games that they are just games, and if you wanted to just leave them at games, you could. However, if you wanted to take it a little bit deeper, you can. So I'll kind of walk through how I debrief some of these as well. So, so these are the names of the 5 games that we're going to talk through in the next 20 minutes or so. And I'll share with you how I change them or use them a little bit as a little bit deeper if I want to. So the first one is called Rock, Paper, Scissors Olympics. So with this game, I usually start everybody out. First, again, I establish the rock, paper, scissors rules, as I did earlier with you with the evolution tag game. And then establish 3 defined areas, one for bronze, one for silver, and then one for gold. And everybody in the game is going to start out in the bronze medal area. So I usually talk a little bit about the Olympics. I'm like, this is an Olympic year. Or in the game of the Olympics, what are the 3 medals that you could earn in the Olympics? And then get that call and response, that interaction with your participants. Bronze, silver, gold, absolutely great. So in this game, rock, paper, scissors Olympics, everybody's going to start out in bronze. And what you're going to do is you're going to then go find a partner, and you're going to find someone to play rock, paper, scissors with. Whoever wins that round advances up to silver. Whoever loses that round stays in bronze and finds another person to play with. Once you're in silver, you're going to find somebody else to play with that's also in the same level as you. And you'll play one round of rock, paper, scissors with them. Whoever wins that round advances to gold. Whoever loses that round devolves back down to bronze. So that way you always have people evolving through all 3 of the different levels. Now, once you get to gold, you can add that gold medal to your medal count. We're going to be keeping track of how many gold medals each person can get in the game. And I'll tell you why I do that at the end, after a teachable moment that I had with a group of kids one time. So once you get to gold, then add that to your gold medal count, then find someone else to play with. Ready, rock, paper, scissors, throw. Whoever wins that round can add another medal to their gold medal count. Whoever loses that round then will devolve 1 level back down to silver. And then you will find someone else to play with there. So, and then play the game for 3 minutes and see how many gold medals you can add to your gold medal count in that 3-minute time period. Ready, go. So, and then the game goes for 3 minutes. So the reason why I did I used to play the game where I would just say, you know, just once you advance to gold, then find someone else to play with, and then, you know, whoever wins stays in gold, whoever loses devolves back down to silver. I was playing with one group of kids one time, and once they evolved up to gold, they stopped playing. I was like, I was kind of watching. I was like, what are you doing? They're like, got gold. Why would I want to play? Why would I want to keep playing? Because once you hit gold, you've hit the top. And I was like, fair enough. Okay. But it made for, I mean, but then there were not enough people for in the other the old other metal areas for the game to really, so the game totally flopped because, once people got to gold, they just quit. And so there, eventually there was only one person left down in bronze, and they had no one to play with, so they couldn't advance. And silver, eventually the same thing, because once people got to gold, they stopped playing. I was like, okay. So I'm like, how could I tweak and change that to make it to where people still played the game the whole time? So anyway, so that's where I came up with, like, each time you get to gold, each time you win in gold, you can add that gold medal to your medal count. And now everyone wants to get as many golds as possible, so they just keep playing. And it became, now everyone plays for 3 minutes. Now here's a couple things that happen in this game that is really very funny. Actually, I'm going to play the video and then I'll share with you. So here's a group of 80 people down here in this area over here. This is the bronze medal, and you can watch people's reactions when they lose, like, right, and then they quickly try to find somebody else to play with. And then the second area over here is going to be silver, and then the video pans over and you'll see what happens in gold as well. Okay, I want to point out, do you see this girl right over here in the left? Let's see where she goes. Watch this girl here in the black. Watch what she does with her hand. She shakes her hand like this. It's amazing what happens when you are playing this game for 3 minutes. I don't know what it is, but when you do the rock, paper, scissors, for whatever reason, people pound their hand when they're playing this game. And by the end of 3 minutes, there are many people that will just, they're like, my hand hurts. Which is one of those just silly things that you don't anticipate happening. But it's one of those, if you're in competition and you're kind of racing a little bit, for whatever reason, you hit your hand really hard. If you do that consistently for 3 minutes, then your hand will throb a little bit at the end of that 3-minute time period, which is kind of funny. So this is one of those games that it could just be that fun game that you play at the end. Everyone's, your endorphins are up. Everyone's been laughing and having a good time. But I usually do a countdown at the end of this, the final 10 seconds of the game. So I'll do 10, 9, 8, and I'll yell it out so everyone can really hear me. What happens in those 10 seconds is very interesting to watch. So down in bronze, what happens is that everybody is freaking out because ideally they want to be in gold at the end of the game. And so people are feeling like, oh my gosh, somebody come play with me, and they're like frantically trying to get out of bronze. And the same thing is happening in silver. They're like, somebody, because they're so close to gold, but yet if they lose, they of course end up back down in bronze. And then if you notice what happens up in the gold area, as soon as you start the countdown for gold, people are like, they'll be like, oh, rock, paper, look at the time, right? And they like are stalling so that way they can stay up in gold and be in gold when the 3 minutes is over. And so it's fascinating to watch because it happens almost every single time I play that game with a group of people, whether it be kids or adults. And so with that, what I like to do then afterwards, I'm like circle everybody up and say, okay, let's talk about that game. What did you like about it? What do you think was the purpose? And was there anything that happened here in the game that maybe we can relate back to the real world? So those are kind of my, when you're debriefing an activity, the three, kind of the what, so what, now what, the questions that I use whenever I'm debriefing a group. What just happened? Why is this important? Or so what? And now what? How does this relate back to the real world? So for this particular game, I'll just ask them, like what happened? Did you have fun? What do you think was the purpose of this game? And then did you notice what happened in that last 10 seconds of the game? What was happening down in bronze in the last 10 seconds? People are like, oh my gosh, we're freaking out. We're trying to move up, whatever. What was happening in silver? Okay, and let them, tell me. And then what was happening up in gold? And then they all kind of like, right? Like you've almost caught them a little bit. And I'm like, how does, like, what was happening on those three levels in bronze, silver, and gold? Does that relate back to the real world, back in organizations or anything like that? And it's interesting to listen to them and have them kind of tell you what it is. Sometimes those down in the bronze level area, those sometimes people will say, well, that's like your frontline staff. They're the ones that are just working frantically um, and really working hard, trying to move up a little bit, but still doing a lot of really fast and frantic work. And then your silvers could be representative of your mid-level leaders and how they're, kind of going in between your frontline and the upper management. And then up in upper management, for some people, now this is not what I believe, but some people will think that up in the upper management, once you get up there, that you don't have to work as hard. And then sometimes to those on the front line, it sometimes appears that once you've got your nice cushy desk and people that work with you or for you or under you or things like that, that you don't work as frantically or as hard. Now, those people that are at the top will tell you that they sometimes work harder. But visibly, it doesn't look like the same kind of work. And so it's one of those games that you can surface those behaviors and bring those topics up if you want to, or it could just be a fun game. But it's been one that I've found that really can help surface some of those, surface those things. I see a question comes in. If a person loses at one level, they move back to the prior level. This might be helpful to keep the game going longer. Yes, absolutely. So for this particular one, you definitely want them, if they lose a round, they devolve so that you always have people at all of the different levels. Yes, absolutely. So that's the game of rock, paper, scissors Olympics. So you can see it could just be a great game, or if you wanted to debrief it and dissect it a little bit and take it a little bit deeper, you can. All right, Protect Your Destroyer is our next game. This is another very giggly game. And again, it could be just a fun tag game, or if you choose to debrief it, you can go a lot deeper with it. So first what you do is have everybody get into a big circle and tell everyone, okay, everyone, what I need you to do is I need you to look around the circle and I need you to secretly choose one person that's going to be your protector in this next activity. They're like, ooh, okay. So I said, now secretly means you keep it to yourself. You don't look at the person and say, it's you, right? Like, don't do that. Like, you need to, like, just keep them in your mind who that person's going to be as the protector. Now I need you to choose a different person that's going to be your destroyer, okay? And so again, secretly choose them. Don't let them know that you've chosen them. So once everyone has their two people, then the game is played by, in a minute, I'm going to say go. And what's going to happen is we're just going to walk around in this area. So here in this particular, for this particular gymnasium, I try to keep this one with some boundaries. If you don't have boundaries on this one, it also becomes a long distance game, and it kind of loses its luster a little bit, if you will. So so try to use the lines on the floor, some sort of boundaries to keep people in check. And so tell them what's going to happen when I say go is that we're just going to walk around in this area, and you need to keep the person that you've chosen as your protector in between yourself and the person you've chosen as your destroyer at all times. So no matter where your destroyer goes, you've got to physically place that person who is your protector physically in between yourself and the person that you've chosen as your destroyer at all times. So it becomes this crazy mingling game that looks like School of Fish, if you will, because people are just maneuvering around. And the crazy thing is that sometimes you choose, like if I've chosen someone as my protector, maybe that same person has chosen me as their destroyer. So they don't want to be anywhere near me, but yet I have to be near them. And so it can create some really hysterical and funny interactions. So here's a kind of a picture of the game in action. And so you are literally just see how all the people are kind of congregated off to one side. It's very funny how sometimes like one person will get chosen a lot as someone's protector. And so therefore people are all trying to be around that one person to try to help prevent their destroyer from being too close to them. And the movement of this one is very interesting and very funny. So that's how I play phase one, is just as protector and destroyer with just those two rules. Now this is one, again, you can play it just like this and have it be that endorphin raiser, that energizer, and just move on. However, if you choose to take this one a little bit deeper, then you can. So you can choose different titles for those two people, for the protector and the destroyer. So I've done a lot of work in schools and whatnot with bullying prevention. And so I thought I wanted to find a game of some sort that I could start to talk about what it feels like if there's a bully walking down the hallways or something like that. And so what I like about phase one of this, playing it as protector destroyer, is that usually the word destroyer, that's more of like a video game term and things like that. You can't really put a face to the name destroyer, really, or that's not what you think of first anyway. However, if you change it to protector and bully, now almost everybody could probably picture a face, a person, that someone that they know demonstrates bullying behaviors, or someone that had bullied them in the past. And now all of a sudden it takes the game to a little bit more personal level than what it was when it was just protector destroyer. So so after I finish phase one, I debrief it a little bit. I'll say, did anything, like, how did you do? Did you keep your protector between yourself and your destroyer? Was there anyone that failed miserably, and why? Like, oh, he chose me as the protector and I was a destroyer, whatever. And then say, okay, well, we're going to change this game just a little bit, and I'm going to choose different roles for those two things. So the first one, protector, is going to still be the same role. So what I want you to do is look around the circle, and I want you to choose someone that's going to be your protector. Now, it could either be the same person that you chose before, or it could be somebody completely different. So get that person in your mind, again, secretly, don't tell them that it's them. And then now I want you to pick a different person. And this person is going to be the bully. Now, it doesn't actually have to be someone that has been a bully. It's just someone that's going to represent this role. So I usually use pretty strong language like that, just so that way people aren't feeling targeted. And so, so anyway, so I'll say choose one person as your protector and one person as the bully. Now we're going to play the game again, and you need to keep your protector between yourself and your bully at all times. And I just want you to take notice to see if the emotions change at all from when you played the first time and you had the destroyer versus this time when there's actually a bully out there that you're trying to stay away from. Ready, go, right? And so then you have them play it again. And then you debrief it afterwards and say, was it the same? Was it different? And a lot of times people will say, yeah, it felt a little bit more important that I keep my protector between myself and the bully. And then sometimes after the game is done, I'll say, please go, I need you to do three things. I need you to go and thank your protector for protecting you, and go and inform your bully that they were your bully during that game. And I do this for a couple of reasons. One is it's interesting to see how sometimes those that demonstrate characteristics of a protector will be the people that people choose as a protector. And then sometimes those that get chosen as a bully, they sometimes demonstrate those behaviors. Now, not all the time, and I do in my pre-brief, I tell them this does not have to be someone that is a bully. In fact, but it's interesting. And so then after I do that, go thank your protector, inform your bully, and then get back into the big circle. So I have them do those three things. And then when I have them get back, just because to maintain emotions, make sure you're still keeping an emotionally safe game as well, I'll say, how many people got chosen as a protector? And I'll have them raise their hands. So then they see the multitude of, a lot of people that got chosen. How many of you got chosen as a bully? And usually there's multiple people that and I've played this game probably 400 times or more, and I've never had only one person be chosen as the bully. So I do that in case there's one person that has gotten chosen multiple times, because that's an interesting message to receive from people like, oh, you were my bully. Oh, you were my bully. Oh, you were my bully. And so I definitely have them raise your hand if you got chosen as a protector, raise your hand if you've been chosen as a bully. And I say, and again, we didn't choose these people, based on the fact that they were a bully. But so let's talk about it. But look, and then of course all the protectors as well. How many of you got chosen as a protector? Okay, great. Now let's talk about behaviors of both. Like, why would someone, or what does a protector represent or look like to you? What does a bully represent? And how did you did you notice your emotions change a little bit when we tried to avoid it? Are there instances in the real world when we try to, when we're trying to avoid that? And so sometimes I'll bring up the hallway, to where sometimes if we know someone that has been mean to us in the hallway or something like that, are there things, do we try to put protectors in place to help prevent us from having an interaction with that person? I have a friend of mine who was a middle school teacher, and he said that there was one time, or he always liked to invite all of his students into his classroom. So he liked to stand at the door of his classroom, and he would always welcome his students into the classroom. And so he said one day he said, and then there was this one girl that always would come up to him during fifth period. Hey there, hey, Mr. Anderson, I like your shoes. Like, what'd you have for breakfast today? And like, just kind of ask him some odd, interesting questions. And he was like, it wasn't a big deal. It's middle school. So you kind of anticipate some of the awkwardness from time to time. And he said, but there was one day that he made it out to the hallway a little late, and wasn't out there right away. And when he got out there, he saw this girl that usually approaches him and asks him a lot of questions. And she was almost frantic trying to find him. And then as soon as she made eye contact with him, like this wave of relief washed over her face, and she darted up to him. And at the same time, then he looked down the other into the hallway. There was this other group of girls that were coming down the hallway at the exact same time. He said she didn't have to say anything, but in that moment, I realized that I was being her protector, even though she would never probably come right out and say it. But so it's one that, and I always tell that story when I do this game, to talk about, did your protector even know that they were protecting you at the time? Well, no, in this game, usually they don't, because I've told you to keep it secret, right? So they don't even know that just their mere presence, they're protecting you from this other person. So that's usually how I debrief it, to keep it emotionally safe and to not let people feel targeted, and to have those behaviors of the bully, to have one particular person get chosen that multiple times to hear that message. But then I also move it to a phase 3. Now, phase 3 that I use this one, especially if I'm teaching this to other facilitators or to teachers or summer camp professionals or other people that are going to literally be in the role of a protector, whether they know it or not, kind of like my story of Mr. Anderson. So with this one, what I do is like, all right, we're going to take this one step further. Now what you're going to do is I need you to pick one person that's going to be the bully, and secretly, so we'll play it one more time. Pick that one person that's going to be the bully. Now I need you to pick a different person that's going to be the person that has been bullied or the victim of bullying. This time you are going to be the protector, and you need to keep yourself in between the person that has been bullied and the bully. Ready, go. And this is a very different game, because the movement, all of a sudden everybody goes straight to the middle of the group, because everyone's trying to be in the middle. And now it's interesting to watch all these people kind of mosh pit in the center of the playing area, and how you physically can't get to the person that you're trying to, you can't physically get in between those two people, because everybody is moshed into the middle. And so some people will try to like move their hand or like put their hand in between two people or things like that. So so it's interesting to watch their strategies. So when I debrief this one, I'll pull people back out. I tell them, go and go and inform your bully and inform your victim that you had chosen them, and then get back into a big circle. So have them get back into the big circle, and then I just started. So the first question I asked them, like, how'd you do? Were you able to protect your person? And show of hands for those that did it well. Show of hands for those that failed miserably. And then my questions for this one go a little bit different. And so I usually ask them, what were some of your strategies that you used to try? Were you being mean to somebody else to try to like shove your way in between these two people? So to keep your own behaviors in check, just to acknowledge that. And then also, usually with educators or facilitators, I ask them, show of hands, what was your strategy? Was your strategy to position yourself closer to the person that had been bullied? Show of hands. And how many of you, your strategy was to position yourself closer to the person who was the bully? Show of hands. And it's a very interesting strategy. I said, now I want you to think, is that what you do in the real world? So if you think about that, what's your natural tendency? Are you one that that positions themselves closer to the person that is the victim of bullying? And what would be some pros and cons of that? And I have them kind of draw that out. What would be a pro to be closer to the person that had been a victim? They might need support. They are feeling, they need some encouragement, things like that. What's a con of that? Oh, well, now you've just identified that they're the victim, and maybe they feel like they're being coddled or something like that. And then the same for the bully. What's a pro of being around the bully? Well, if they're and then a con of the of positioning yourself closer to the victim is also, if you have somebody that is truly a bully, then they're probably off bullying other people if you've got yourself over here, right? And then pros and cons of this one. Position yourself closer to it, you can nip the behavior. Con of that could be maybe they like the attention, or and maybe they, will continue doing it if they know that they can get you to come and hang out with them all the time. So anyway, not that one is right or wrong, and you probably need to do a combination of both, but it is, it's just one of those to be aware of, that that there are pros and cons to each. And more often than not, however you play the game, that's the way that you probably do it in the real world, or that's your natural tendency, which can be a big teachable moment for some people. They're like, oh gosh, I never really thought about that. But you're right, that is what I usually do. So again, could be just a fun game, and also variations of this one. If you just want to keep it light and fun, you could change the roles of the 3 different positions. I one time did some work at a science camp, so I had the neutrons. You had to keep the neutrons between the protons and the electrons at all times. So it became kind of a fun way that you could teach a little bit of science. For church camps or religious groups or whatnot, you have to keep Jesus between yourself and the world at all times. So feel free to have fun with those. And I'm sure for other science, you could come up with a food chain type of thing as well. But if you get creative enough, you can come up with other names and titles for those particular 3 different roles that play in the game. All right, Niku. I realize we're now at about an hour, so if people need to duck out, I totally understand. I'm going to keep going because the webinar's recorded. I'll walk through these last 3 games, and then you can feel free to come back to the recording at a later date if you need to. Niku is another one of those games that you can use as a fantastic teachable moment game. So this one here is you have everyone start out into a big circle, come up with defined boundaries. This one here, we use the circle in this soccer field as our boundaries. And basically the game of knee tag is that Niku is that you are tagging the kneecaps of everybody else. So everybody is it, and you are trying to just tag the kneecaps. Now, when I describe this to people, I usually ask them, now who knows if their kneecap has been touched? And what is the actual kneecap? It is actually that bone right in your knee. And so now, is the side of your kneecap, or is the side of your knee your kneecap? No. Is the back? Is the front? And so I really get them to identify what is the kneecap. And so I tell them that in a minute we're going to start this game, and what's going to happen is we're all going to run around. If your kneecap gets tapped, then you need to remove yourself from the game and stand on the outside of the boundary area. And then we'll play a couple rounds of this, just so you know. But if your kneecap gets tagged, then remove yourself from play. So it's a great runaround game, and some people are out in the first 2 seconds, and then other people are in it for a little bit longer. So that's phase 1. Just play it the first way, just to get the game rolling. Now, how you can take this to a little bit deeper level is at phase 2. Then I tell them, all right, we're going to play this game again. And if your kneecap gets tagged twice, then you're going to remove yourself from the game. So play that one out again. First, once you get it tapped once, just keep track yourself. Gets tapped twice, then just remove yourself from the game. And then usually you go against, towards the end, it's 1 against 1, and then eventually, sometimes if it's going on for too long, I'll say, okay, no backup rule, and so then they actually have to keep moving towards one another. Otherwise, it can be a long cat and mouse game if you don't incorporate something like that as well. So, and then phase 3. Phase 3 is where I can take it to into a little bit deeper game. So phase 3 is, we're going to play this game one more time. This time I want you to remove yourself if your kneecap gets tagged twice, or if you catch yourself judging someone then remove yourself from the game. So that means if you feel like you have judged someone like, oh, that person totally got their knee tagged, their kneecap tagged, and like all of a sudden, if you're judging somebody else, then remove yourself from the game, even if your kneecaps haven't been tagged twice. So the way is to remove yourself if your kneecap gets tagged twice, or you catch yourself judging somebody else, then remove yourself from the game and then watch it play out. It's really interesting to watch. And I use this when I have a group that really wants to work on integrity and trust. And so when I debrief this one at the end, I'll say, okay, everybody, let's circle up. How did that go? Was there anyone that, who removed themselves because you got your kneecap tagged twice? Okay, great. Now, did anyone remove yourself because you judged someone else? And you'll see a couple people raise their hand like, so what was happening in that moment? How did you catch yourself judging someone? And they'll say, I totally felt like so-and-so, had already been tagged a couple times and they weren't removing themselves from the game. I say, okay, well, now, do you know if their kneecap was tagged? Remember, who's the one that knows whether they got their kneecap tagged? The person that owns the kneecap, right? They're going to be the one that really does know. And then I'll ask, so who won that game? And then again, it's that like, well, what do you mean who won that game? Was it the last person in? The last person in, not that they were this, but it could be they were maybe the biggest liar out there. Maybe they had their kneecap tagged multiple times. But just because of the last one out there, did they actually win the game? So what's more important, being honest and with having your integrity, or is it being the last one standing, which is the way that you prefer? So now you can start to dive into those behaviors a little bit more. And what I love about that is that you've used the game to surface the behavior. And now we can have a little bit harder conversation about honesty and integrity and things like that you might not have been able to have, or it would have been harder to have it if you didn't have the game to surface the behavior first. So it's a great one, and it's one that I've played multiple times with lots of different types of groups, whether it be adult groups and kid groups. This one you can do with as few as 10, and I would say on this one maybe as far as a limit on this one, I don't know if I would play with more than 50 at a time. That seems like it'd be pretty large for this one, especially because if you're going to debrief it, then you want to have a small enough circle to where everyone has an opportunity to share in the debriefing circle as well. So that's kind of my rule of thumb is if you're going to debrief things, a little bit smaller groups is a little bit better. All right, amoeba tag. Amoeba tag is a good larger group. I would say up to 20 people or so for amoeba tag. You could play with as few as 10 as well. Actually, I think I've even played it with a group of 6 before. So this one, you need to establish boundaries ahead of time. One person will start out as it in that boundary area, and everybody else is kind of on one. This one, you need 2 ends, almost like more of a rectangular area. And so everybody starts out on one end of the playing field, and the person who's it starts out in the middle. And then you say go, and everybody has to try to get across the playing field area without getting tagged. Now, each person that gets tagged becomes a part of the amoeba. So if you think about the amoeba, it starts out as one cell, and then it eventually keeps getting bigger and bigger and bigger. So same with amoeba tag. Each person that gets tagged becomes a part of the amoeba. So then you would have them, if everyone's now on this side, and you've got 2 people as part of the amoeba now, then they would try to run, and then the amoeba is going to run, hold hands to become a part of the amoeba. And then as the group runs across, every person they tag then becomes a part of the amoeba. So then you keep playing until everybody is absorbed. So here's an example of 3 people here that are the amoeba chasing after one person. And now you can tell that person got tagged because here they are now chasing. Now there's 4 people in the amoeba chasing after the next group or that next person. So it's definitely, it's a run around game. You'll definitely get tired while playing this game. So how I debrief this one is, this one here has a little bit of a theme that if everybody works together, we can get a lot done. So when there's one person is it and they're running around, it's a lot of hard work. But the more people that you have to absorb into that amoeba, it actually, the game, once you have multiple people as part of the amoeba, the game actually ends pretty quickly because you could absorb a lot of things all at one time, and you could kind of trap people into the amoeba. So I sometimes use that one as a good intro. It's if you've just done your initial icebreaker and you really want to work on teamwork all day long, look what happens when everybody works together. Everything gets done a lot quicker, things like that. So it's one of those that kind of scratches the surface of teamwork and things like that. So so it's a good one to sequence in early in your program if that's kind of the focus of whatever your program is. All right, and last but not least, everyone's it and slow-mo tag. Now I teach these two in tandem because it's easy to start out with one and then move into the other. So I always start with everybody's it. I usually like to come up with a code word. I used to work a program where it was a 10-day program for at-risk kids, and so I would announce a code word at the beginning of that 10 days and say, anytime you hear me yell out that code word, then the game has begun, and everybody is it. And so literally, if it is pineapple or whatever the word is, if I yell that out, then the game begins at that exact moment. Everybody is it. It could be also the world's fastest tag game. Because literally, if you're all just kind of standing there, I mean, like you could totally just tag the two people to your left, or your right, like, oh, and then they're out, and then it just goes like literally, it's like a 15-second game. So, so that's one that you could play if you've got a group for an entire day. Just come up with whatever that code word is and just like yell it out multiple times throughout the day, and the game immediately begins. Or then if you want to change it from the fastest tag game to could be very slow tag game, I then move it to slow-mo tag. Now slow-mo tag is you can either come up with a different code word for when the game is when that game starts. Same rules apply. Everybody is it. However, you can only take one step at a time. So let's say I just say, okay, guys, we're gonna play the game of slow-mo tag. Ready, step. And every time you say step, they can take one step in any direction. And if they can reach anybody in that area, then they can tag them. If you get tagged, then you sit down. If you're still in the game, then you stay standing. And then I say step, and then they can take a step in a different direction. And again, they can tag anybody they can within an arm's length, but they can't move their feet. Their feet are stationary. And then step, and then as people get tagged, then they sit down. Now, one little variation that you could throw in is sometimes maybe 3/4 of the way through the game and only 3 people are left standing. I'll say, all right, this just in from corporate, or everybody on deck, everybody is now back in the game, or the people that are sitting may also tag. Or you could also, so then you play a couple rounds that way, and then you say step, and so now they have to be very careful where they step, because now the people that are sitting down can also tag them. And then you can say that if you are seated and you tag somebody, then you may stand back up. And so then you've got this game of everybody who's you can change who's in and who's out of the game based on every time you say step. So you say step, then someone that was standing gets tagged by someone that was sitting, then the roles reverse. The person that was sitting is now standing. So it's interesting to watch the strategies emerge and things like that. So how I debrief this one, how I could take it to a little bit deeper level. This is another one that's kind of like amoeba tag, how it just scratches the surface of teamwork, basically, and how if everybody works together, then really quickly things could happen. And that everybody has a responsibility in playing their part and playing the game. And I one time did a whole church camp with a group, and I talked about how I took the metaphor of how everybody had a responsibility to play the game, how everybody has a responsibility to share their faith and things like that, and it became up to them. As soon as they heard that code word, or as soon as they heard that whatever, then the game is being played, right? So again, it's one that I try to find, within games, a metaphor that will relate back to the real world, so that way then they go from just being games and energizers to something that actually can teach a message and create a teachable moment for your participants. So, and there you go, slow-mo tag. I forgot to advance my slide, but there you go. All right, so are there any questions from anybody about any of the games that you saw or that I presented throughout the day? If so, please type them quickly into the chat window, and I'll be sure to answer those. And just for those of you that are still with us here at the very end, I want to thank you for being here. I hope you learned some new games that you'll be able to take into your practice. And if you are interested, all the games that we presented today, for the most part, other than Wagon Wheel Tag, where you need a rubber chicken or something, you could even use a water bottle, something simple. But most of them were all non-prop. But if you're looking for other resources and games and things like that, be sure to check out our website at training-wheels.com. I actually have a blog there as well that lists, there's lots and lots of full instructions for games and initiatives there. And so go check out the blog, and then feel free to visit our online store as well and see some of the prop-based tools that we have. A lot of my write-ups are written right on the store as well, so feel free to go and peruse and pilfer what you want to from there. Use it as a resource to enhance your own game, bag of tricks. And then we also have an online games database, if you're not aware, to where it's a subscription-based, where it houses 450 different activities, write-ups, videos, pictures, all of that. So you can have instant access to 450 different activities that range from icebreakers and energizers to problem-solving activities, communication activities, leadership activities, and a wealth of debriefing tools and techniques as well. So this recorded webinar will be sent to you. There'll be a link sent to you by Dan or by AEE. And so you'll be able to get a copy of it there. And they'll have it available on their website in their webinar section as well. So Dan, I'm going to pass it back over to you, and thank you all for joining us today.
Sure thing. And thank you, Michelle. That was wonderful as always. I continue to appreciate how if I come to a workshop or a webinar with you, I can guarantee that every second of it will be jam-packed with content that I can take away and start using. So thanks everybody for coming. Thanks again, Michelle. Have a great day.